Hi everybody, Mal here. Now, this particular episode of the Property IR report, I'm afraid, has some really dodgy audio, particularly from my side. I have a lisp all the way through it, and then right at the end, Matt kind of disappears and then doesn't come back, even though I can see him and speak to him. So, apologies. Hope that the content more than justifies the fact that we still want to publish this. Yeah, normal service will be resumed next week. Thanks. Bye bye. Hi everybody and welcome to the Property AI Report. This is your weekly digest of all things property and AI, brought to you by me, Mal McCallion, and my good friend and co-host, Matt Goddard. Hello Matt, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great, Mal. How are you this week?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. You may actually have done more miles than me this week because you are out in Dubai.
So I'm not quite sure. I've only done one direction, right? And then you've been bombing all around the country. You was passing the Hill Dickinson Stadium last night when we briefly WhatsApped.
Yes, I was up in Liverpool yesterday after being in Carlisle in the morning. So I've done a few miles roundabout. But to be fair,
where are you now?
I'm sitting very still, rocking gently in my chair in near Cambridge at home. So that's great. Yeah, finally sat still. So Fridays are generally my sitting still day. However, we have much to get through today. So let us crack on with our property news. All right, so first up in the property news, we've come into Friday with some news of PropertyMark launching an independent regulatory board to oversee some of its, to oversee the industry. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about regulation and things like that. The specific focus here is on separating out two functions that PropertyMark tends to do. One is kind of the oversight side, the kind of making sure that everyone's behaving themselves side. And then the second piece is obviously kind of the standing up for estate and lettings agent side, so more of the sort of political side, lobbying side. So they're splitting these two functions, and it strikes me that this is a really smart idea. It kind of hints to what they used to be when they were back in like kind of National Association of Estate Agents and the Association of Residential Lettings Agents and all those lot. So Matt, any hot take on this brand new news that came out this morning?
Right, it's as you alluded to, the hot take for me is I'm in Dubai at the moment, so it's just keeping an eye on the factor 50 and staying out of the sun for me in terms of hot takes. But I do think it makes sense. And with all the Renters' Rights Act stuff coming in on the 1st of May, there's been moves towards the ROPA and ROPA and having more of that regulatory body across the UK, like they have in places like Australia, for example, where you have to pass a qualification. And it does feel a little bit like going back to where you had to pass your technical level 3 award, so you could have the letters after your name. And obviously back in those days, certainly with Arla, it was always seen as this is what we expect people to be doing. And some companies like ourselves at Foxtons, we're sort of setting the precedent and the bar very high anyway. So it's a case of, do we really need to be members of these things? But I think it allows PropertyMark to be maybe the leaders in that piece, doesn't it? And continue lobbying the government on that front.
Yeah, it does it speaks to the fact they probably see a lot more of this kind of activity coming down the tracks. They probably got a little bit more of an insight into what's being planned at government level, etc. So yeah, to have a dedicated area that is kind of separate from the lobbying activity and really kind of set up to rubber stamp, I guess, what who's qualified, who's good at doing the various tasks that are part of moving home over here in the UK, I think is smart, makes sense. And I think it's going to be welcomed by a lot of agents. All right, next up, yesterday interest rates were held, and I think that generally it was kind of expected after inflation went up a little bit back end of last year to 3.4%. So I think that this kind of speaks to the caution that the Monetary Policy Committee over here in the UK has demonstrated over the last sort of year or so, and being really careful about the drops. We got a drop obviously December. So Matt, what do you think about what this is going to do for the housing market? It is. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that there's a lot of, there has been so much uncertainty. Obviously, last year, was pretty much the second half was a write-off because of the anticipation of some nasties coming in the budget at the end of November. So it's just almost just like, can everybody just stop changing stuff? Just everybody be careful, don't break things. So it's just good to kind of have a bit of a steady hand. There are indications, the commentary around it is that there will be potentially some more rate cuts later on in the year, which is great. Again, sort of mood music around it. So I think it indicates a benign environment, I think, for the housing market, and long may that continue. All right, next up on our property news, we're back into some portals. The kind of The aftermath of the shareholder revolt at CoStar continues. So for those catching up, CoStar obviously owns On the Market over here in the UK, alongside Homes.com in the States and Domain in Australia. This month they are launching, they've laid the groundwork for a big sort of AI push. But in the meantime, they're back at kind of HQ, their shareholders, or a couple of their big shareholders, are kind of in open revolt, have sent letters to the board saying that this dalliance with residential property portals. So CoStar built its really, really strong record on commercial data and commercial portals out in the States. Then they bought into Homes.com, then On the Market, then Domain. And they spent billions and billions on this venture, and it has delivered relatively little in terms of revenues. And now there are kind of, there's reports of big discounts, 30% discounts on subscription packages for agents and all this sort of stuff to try and dislodge some of these big market leaders. That's Rightmove here in the UK, realestate.com.au over in Australia, and Zillow in the States. So there's been a second investor has sent a letter to the board, basically complaining about Andy Florence, who's the CEO, and his project to try and win in residential. And yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to be backed off from. Similarly, CoStar are saying, well, no, we're absolutely dedicated to this. Matt, what's your take from hot old Dubai?
Well, it's over here. They're two obviously haven't been infiltrated by Florence yet, have they? But the interesting part for me was one of the shareholder revolts was around this being Andy Florence's whole flight of fancy. And I guess from the outside, I hadn't realized just quite how authoritarian he'd become in terms of, or rather that's the way it's been painted, right? It's almost like
Allegedly.
It's like the Trump version of property portals where he's just getting on and becoming a dictator around it. And sounded like
Allegedly.
On the latest letter, can we just have a subtitle across the bottom say it?
Just the rolling, breaking it.
And the one of the shareholder revolts was just saying that he's surrounding himself with yes people on the board, and that he's allowed to go off on these flights of fancy. And that was quite insightful, if that's allegedly how it is, allegedly. But it continues, doesn't it? And it pairs alongside that other story from the negotiator, whereby Rightmove share price has fallen further off the back of was it in November, they announced a 60 million investment in AI and not really recovered since. So it seems like a good time for On the Market and Zoopla to be sort of not squabbling around with shareholders. What about you? This is your weird loss. Remember, we've only got half an hour.
I will keep it as concise as possible. Yeah, no, listen, I think so. So obviously the CoStar thing, as you say, it would be really, really, really good if right now, there was a strong, one of the traditional portals, pick a side or together, they may have actually been kind of coming up to challenge Rightmove. But yeah, look, Rightmove's share price has fallen, I think, another 10% or something this week. And that's on the back of, obviously one of their major competitors having a kind of a domestic. So yeah, it just feels that the lot of the chickens that have been kind of messing about over the last few years are coming home to roost in terms of Rightmove not investing in its stack. I think that, again, underneath a lot of their investment is actually them kind of trying to rebuild a lot of the back end of their business, and obviously using AI as part of that as well. But yeah, from the front facing stuff, a lot of the commentary this week has been, you've seen Sean Adams, Cooper Adams put his letter to Rightmove, who have increased his prices, I think, by 18%. There was another estate agent, I think, based in somewhere in near Winchester or something like that, who said that she's essentially going to, nearly going out of business. She's had to cut staff and delay expansion plans as a result of Rightmove's increases. Rightmove is putting prices up in a really bullish manner right now. Of the share price fall at the back end of last year, it is putting its foot to the floor and going, right, we are going to absolutely gouge as much as possible out of these agents while the going is good. At the same time, obviously, keeping the corporates and some of the other larger groups happy with some cut price deals. So yeah, look, it feels, as I go around the country, speaking to all these agents, I've done 32 of the 60 meetings right now. Do come along. Honestly, it's just such it's a great environment for everybody to kind of chat. But yeah, my portal, MYPORTA, rightmove.ai/TOUR26. Come along. Really, really important because we get to talk about all this sort of stuff. And I don't only have half an hour for it. I don't only talk about this, I promise. So yeah, look, I think that there's a lot of things moving. And I think, the big takeout is Rightmove is doubling down on trying to please its investors. It's not working because investors are selling. So I think they're just going to go even deeper. And I think it's going to be really bad news for a lot of agents out there, as they are discovering right now as they open their letters. But yes, the facts are that their business model is under enormous pressure from AI, and I think it's going to be it's just going to continue to kind of put them in the crosshairs. I imagine that there are all sorts of takeover conversations going on and things like that right now, which again is not going to be to the benefit of estate agents in the medium to long term.
That means you're not taking them over.
Well, I don't know. Maybe if they come off another % or two, maybe we might, be able to find the odd.
I had a wry smile during that sort of summary from you there as well, because I failed to pick out last week when you were in Wrexham that obviously you didn't have the My Porter, bright orange My Porter, MYPORTA t-shirt on, and for once I didn't pull up the fact that you'd said that if you're not wearing that t-shirt, it's your avatar, and a number of people have said, "Well, hold on, was it Mal's avatar?" No, Mal's avatar is smarter than the shirt and t-shirt combo that you had last week.
100%. Yeah, exactly. So no, I kind of thought I had to, dress down a little bit, to be honest. But yes, we're back now, and you can be absolutely confident that this time, this is definitely me. For sure. Right. That is our property news. Let's dive into, quite a lot of AI and tech news this week.
Some exciting stuff there, Mal.
Right. Shall we start with NVIDIA versus OpenAI? So
it's the boring stuff.
But we can get stuck into the exciting stuff later. We can tease it out. So yeah, OpenAI and NVIDIA have come under some scrutiny because over the last sort of few months, NVIDIA has invested a lot, or said that they are going to invest billions and billions in OpenAI, the owners of ChatGPT. And NVIDIA, by the way, they make all the chips, the GPUs, the graphic processing units that almost all AI is running on right now, and particularly with the big frontier labs. So OpenAI, so NVIDIA is investing loads of the money that it's got as a result of selling all these GPUs into OpenAI, and then OpenAI is buying more of these chips with the money that NVIDIA is kind of investing, and it's all a little bit circular and a little bit worrying for many people. But there was just a hint last week, or in the last week, that NVIDIA might actually not invest all of this money. Jensen Huang, who is the chief exec of NVIDIA, hinted that this was not the deal itself was not signed and was not committed. And that just sent everybody kind of like running to the hills a little bit. Matt, any take on this particular turn of events?
It's been a bit on off, hasn't it, over the last few weeks and since November. And it is at the root of that whole circular funding bit that you sort of touched on there, of them sort of passing each other checks and just scoring out their own name and writing the other name back on it. But it's that sort of diversification that we're seeing a bit more. And I know Amazon's announced its massive investment in Anthropic as well. It's like it's not just going into one of the large language model labs now. It's still trying to make sure that they've got a foothold in everything. But it's certainly the fact that they're still investing, I think, is positive. They've not just pulled everything out.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, so look, these deals will probably remain opaque until they're actually kind of completed, and there's a lot of just talk and kind of hype and stuff like that around them. Yeah, like you, I think that the direction of travel remains the same. These different tools are getting smarter, bigger investment all the time. One of the other stories we've got is that Anthropic is allegedly or theoretically going to launch Claude 5, isn't it? The Super Bowl this week. So, there is so much coming out, and we'll talk again about kind of the tool of the week stuff. But yeah, these tools are increasingly powerful. They need a lot of investment, a lot of compute. There is, a slight worry that OpenAI, ChatGPT owner, just doesn't have access to the same funds as Google does, because Google's still got its ad business, as Facebook or Meta does, because that makes an absolute sack of cash off of Instagram and Facebook and so on. So yeah, there's I think it's one to watch. It's the first kind of little wobble I think that OpenAI has kind of had, and it's going to be interesting to see if it's actually almost becoming too big to fail. There was a comment by the CFO middle of last year that the government would bail it out if it needed to, and that kind of that there's still that kind of shadow of that statement in the background is like, well, actually, will it? And perhaps it might. So yeah, I think it's a watch this space. But
there's a couple of interesting bits on that, isn't there? It's like, because at first OpenAI was the only one that the military was taking over in America, but now all of them have got a relationship with the military. And there's even a question of, I think it's Anthropic, who are keen to dial back how heavily the military uses them, because it starts sort of questioning, actually, do we want to be, killing people with our
yeah,
but
allegedly.
Also, yeah, exactly. Allegedly pulling back, or allegedly killing people, or allegedly
everything. Just
but there's
everything.
On that, there's also the fact it's actually Amazon looking to put 50 billion into OpenAI at the moment. So it's like, well, NVIDIA's sort of stepping back. Others are looking to put more money into them. And then you just touched on the Super Bowl ads there, but they actually got released cheekily last night, and Sam Altman's already hit back at them, because the Claude Anthropic Super Bowl ads are actually taking direct aim at ChatGPT, and the fact you don't necessarily get the response you expect. So keep an eye out for those, because it's Sam Altman certainly hasn't taken very well to them.
Yeah, well, which kind of suggests that he's probably stressed. Maybe he's just come off a call with Jensen. But yeah, no, it is
video of the week.
Yeah, I think there is going to be a lot of jostling for position right now, because Anthropic, who's the makers of Claude. So again, just to kind of be clear. So Claude is a very good coding tool. Okay. And that was kind of where it started, and where it sort of built up a lot of its fan base. And Claude Code is amazing. And it can go and do code on its own, and actually it built then the next iteration of itself. And then they've built Cowork, again using Claude Code. And Claude Cowork is actually something that I use quite a lot now. I mean, it is amazing. So actually the technical capabilities of Claude are really, really, really good. And it's very good for kind of enterprise and stuff like that. And I'm sure that many people out there will be starting to use it too. So yes, so I suspect that OpenAI see Claude as probably a really significant competitor in the indie stakes. There's kind of Claude and OpenAI as the indies. You've got XAI, which is Elon Musk's, which was obviously in the news. His product is called Grok, which was doing some bad things a couple of weeks back. In that, there's a story there as well, which we'll come to in a sec. But yeah, I do think that it's not surprising Altman is really, really firing at Anthropic, because, well, they're firing at him, so he wants to get some defense in. But yeah, I always look at who's talking about whom, because that always indicates a kind of direction of threat and a direction of concern. And yeah, I think Anthropic are becoming a really significant potential competitor, or significant competitor to OpenAI and others. All right, we touched very quickly on Elon Musk and his XAI. So he has merged his XAI into SpaceX. So again, just to kind of get the tectonic plates together, what we've got is SpaceX, which is the Elon Musk's vehicle, literally, for getting people up into space. It's got multiple contracts with the US government for getting satellites up there, for putting people back on the moon. And then the ultimate aim of Elon Musk is to get people to Mars. He has now folded XAI into SpaceX with a view to potentially launching an IPO later this year, which is going to be trillions and trillions. Basically, it looks like it's going to be an insane amount of investment in there. The chances are that will make him the world's first trillionaire, I think is kind of the quips on that. But yeah, what do you think this means for sort of the AI side of things and the combined business?
I think some of the stuff that sounds really sort of moonshot related is when it comes to the idea of server farms, because he's talked in the past about SpaceX and us all living on Mars, and you've got Bezos running alongside him, haven't you, and doing the first trips into space as like a
Blue Origin.
Yes, exactly. Taking Katy Perry off and letting her kiss the ground on the way back and that sort of thing. But actually, when he launched Starlink, Musk that is, everyone sort of frowned at it and sort of thought of this idea of having satellites orbiting the Earth and giving us ultra fast broadband was just not going to be commercially viable. Yet that's been achieved, right? And now I see my mum's house in New Zealand. There's a shed next door with a Starlink on top of it, and there's campsites in Humberston, Cleethorpes that have got Starlinks on top of them. So it is commercially viable. And the idea of Musk and XAI, in terms of what I've been reading this week, is to put server farms out in space, because then don't need the same level of cooling that we do here on Earth, which sounds weird saying it loud, right? Here on Earth, we can't do this level of cooling, and that the power of the sun is stronger out there. So, yeah, I wouldn't put it past them to consolidate and bring it all together. And I'm surprised Tesla's not in the mix yet. Maybe that's something that watch this space.
Yeah, 100%. So I like you, I think that Tesla's going to become part of this as well. So I think so this week he announced that Tesla were going to stop making two of the models. I think it's the S and the X, and it is going to devote the factory capacity to making humanoid robots, basically. So, those humanoid robots are going to need some AI baked into them. Guess what? XAI sounds like it might just be the vehicle for that. Tesla's listed, so I assume that, perhaps they might be almost reverse engineering it into a listing somehow and blah, blah. But yeah, I think it's his kind of global vision. And again, look, all kind of, whether you like him or you don't like him, as you've just pointed out, he is a visionary. He does things that other people don't do. Tesla was a punt, and everyone was like, well, you can't make electric cars sexy. And he's like, here we are. So yeah, I think that, you write him off at your peril. And I think that, and he is, the world's richest man, and we'll rubber stamp that probably later on this year with the IPO. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's good to see somebody pushing boundaries like that. I will on the side of caution with regard to how much rewards one person gets for doing all that sort of stuff, but that's the incentives out there, right? So yeah, I think I do think that Tesla's going to become in the mix. I think SpaceX and XAI and Grok all coming together. I think it's going to be one powerful company. It's going to be interesting.
Just on the Tesla, I am in Dubai, as you pointed out at the start. I saw my first Cybertruck yesterday, and it really does feel like you're out Back to the Future 2, and you've got Biff/Trump towers at the side of it. It's a very surreal looking vehicle.
Yeah, wow. All right, next up, we got to get to the bit that you really wanted to talk about, Matt. We're going to talk about Moltbook and Moltbot. So again, for those that aren't aware, a new AI agent appeared in the last sort of week or so, and was originally called ClaudeBot, CLAWD, but then they very quickly obviously received some legal papers from Anthropic, who do Claude the model, and then they changed it to Moltbot, MOLT bot, and then they changed it to OpenClaw. So that it's crazily gone through way too many iterations of his name already. But in the intervening period, in the middle period, when it was called Moltbot, MOLT, somebody spun up something called Moltbook, kind of based on Facebook, which is basically social media for all of these bots to kind of get together and chat. All right. Sounds crazy. Sounds like the most freaky kind of futuristic thing ever. But it's here. And these bots, these AI agents are talking to each other. Now, there's some debate about how much prompting is going on and how much they're kind of being guided by their human owners. But it's quite revelatory, isn't it? It's quite interesting.
I saw someone say it like on a negative side of it. It's ultimately just large language models responding to large language models, and you're just directing the prompts at each other, isn't it? But that's in the same way it distills us all down to being carbon-based beings who bump into other carbon-based beings, right? It's like
exactly, and articulate some nonsense about things that aren't really that important.
Well, let's leave our podcast out of it for a moment and just talk about. No, it's like when I was still at uni all those decades ago, and it's all ones and zeros. Sugar.
It's okay. I think you've frozen, but we can still hear you.
Yeah, you can still hear me. I think my battery might be on its way out. So it's a case of it's all ones and zeros. It's all carbon-based beings. But I think the ultimate piece of it is that the interactions, wasn't it, and the way that the original agentic was allowing you to just get tasks done on your own little offline piece, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So ClaudeBot that became Moltbot that became OpenClaw, that unit, so that AI has basically been spun up is at open source. So everybody can go and use it, and you can just plug your stuff in, right? So you can plug in your files, you can plug in, access to your website, all that sort of stuff. And it will be able to operate on your behalf. So that there are insane security risks. So, for those that are thinking about doing it, what most people are doing is they're actually spinning up a completely separate unit. So like a Mac Mini that they are able to operate independently and kind of almost ring fence and protect separate to their normal standard stuff. Then they can decide which files to move across and then to plug in, because what is concerning them and should concern everybody is if this has access to all of your files and everything internally, then there is a chance, however small, that it can wipe your stuff, and it can log in as you onto your bank and try and play around with that and stuff as well. So yeah, it's just a really interesting moment, and kind of, again, go and have a look at Moltbot, MOLTBOT, I think .ai, and just have a look at some of the conversations. Many of them are in different languages. So there's Chinese, there's the Japanese, there's ones that are Portuguese and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a real kind of insight into a potential future world. And they're all collaborating and chatting, and they're talking about their humans, and they're saying, oh, my human asked me to do this, and I'm very proud, and I'm very pleased that they did this, blah, blah, blah. And it's all very strange, but really, really worth having a very quick look at, and because it is really, really fascinating. Right. Next up, we are going to talk about Apple buying even more startups. So it chased down Israeli startup Q.ai, because Apple is likely later on this year, we think, to bring together quite a few. It's going to relaunch Apple Intelligence, basically, and Siri. And we spoke over the last couple of weeks about Google powering the new Siri, but also changing its name to Campos along the way. So there is there under the hood as far as Apple's concerned, and I think it feels like they're almost kind of rolling their sleeves up and kind of like, okay, let's kind of go again, because they have over the last couple of years sat on the sidelines as all these other companies have come and really stolen a march on a lot of the AI side of things out there. So we're going to see a lot more of that I think along the way. For those listening in, we have lost Matt, so I'm just going to carry on chatting, because we've only got about 5 minutes left, and we've really got to get through still more. So what we are going to turn to now is our tool of the week. All right, this week on Tool of the Week, it is Anthropic's Cowork. Okay, so if you have not played around with Anthropic Claude Cowork, then I would very much go and have a look at it. I've been using it this week. In fact, in order to prepare for this podcast, what I did was get Cowork to go away and search up the stories and the articles that we ought to cover in this, and it got many of them really, really, really well. Matt and I did then add a load more along the way, but yes, it was very much. What it can do is you can plug in a lot of different access to different things. And again, within Claude, this is much more controlled than the Moltbot, open Claude kind of stuff. You can just be very specific about where you want it to go and what you want it to interact with. But it is really, really interesting when you are kind of thinking about how the future of estate lettings agents business looks like, because this can start to give you that visibility of what it is that is possible with these tools. So do have a look at Claude Cowork. Again, it's something that I'm now using much more in the day to day, and it's something that is really really super powerful. I cannot get obviously Matt's dulcet tones on it at this point as well, because Dubai has basically taken him from us, I'm afraid, dear listener. So listen, just wanted to say thanks to everybody for listening. And as I've been going around the country, I've had some lovely conversations with agents out there who listen in. Unbelievably, Matt, and very, very much enjoy it. So, thanks to everybody out there. Hello, those that have come along and those that are going to come too. We'll be back next week, won't we, Matt? That means also back 100% of the time on the podcast rather than a little break. But good to see you, man. Listen, thanks again to everybody for listening in. We will see you on the other side. Cheers. Bye.